Florida's housing market in 2025 is collapsing like a house of cards. Median home prices statewide have slipped from $445,000 to $408,000, wiping out billions in equity. Families are losing $40,000 to $100,000 in value almost overnight, while insurance bills soar past $7,500 a year and property taxes drain another $3,000 to $6,000 annually. Inventory has exploded nearly 35%, with entire neighborhoods plastered in "for sale" signs. What was once the American dream is now a brutal freefall. Here are 10 cities crumbling fastest. Number 10. Deltona. Deltona, tucked between Orlando and Daytona Beach, was once marketed as an affordable escape for working families and retirees. But in 2025, this budget-friendly promise is unraveling fast. The city's median home price sits around $310,000, which might sound like a bargain compared to Orlando's $390,000 or Tampa's $400,000. But here's the shocker: wages haven't kept pace. The average household income in Deltona hovers near $58,000 annually, leaving locals paying over 35% of their income on housing alone, far above the national affordability benchmark of 28%. Inventory has exploded by nearly 30% year over year, creating a glut of unsold homes. Sellers are slashing prices left and right, with nearly 41% of listings seeing price cuts. Imagine buying a house last summer for $325,000 and watching comparable homes hit the market today for $295,000. That's a paper loss of $30,000 in less than a year. Mortgage rates sticking above 6.5% only compound the misery, locking new buyers out while trapping current owners who can't refinance. Insurance premiums have become another silent killer. In Volusia County, where Deltona sits, homeowners are now paying $4,500 to $6,000 annually just for coverage. Many insurers are pulling out entirely, forcing residents onto the costly state-run Citizens Property Insurance. Property taxes average around 1.03%, which on a $300,000 house adds another $3,000 a year, further eroding affordability. The jobs market isn't helping either. Deltona relies heavily on commuting to Orlando for employment, but rising gas prices and layoffs in tourism and retail mean disposable income is shrinking. Families who stretch their budgets to escape the city now face rising costs and falling equity. What was marketed as a suburban dream is fast turning into Florida's newest housing nightmare, an overbuilt, overpriced commuter hub that's collapsing under its own promises. Number 9. Lakeland. Lakeland, sitting right between Orlando and Tampa, was once a magnet for buyers priced out of the big metros. In 2025, it's one of the hardest-hit Florida markets, and the numbers tell a brutal story. The median home price in Lakeland now hovers around $320,000, but that's after a sharp slide from nearly $355,000 in mid-2023. Year over year, that's close to a 10% drop in value, and the slide hasn't stopped. For a family that bought in 2022 at the peak, equity losses easily top $40,000 to $60,000. Inventory has surged over 28% year over year, creating a backlog of unsold homes across Polk County. Roughly 39% of sellers are cutting listing prices, sometimes by tens of thousands, just to attract a single showing. Days on market have stretched past 80 days on average, nearly double what it was during the pandemic frenzy. Builders who once couldn't keep up with demand are now offering incentives like $20,000 closing cost credits and free upgrades, a sign of desperation in a cooling market. The affordability squeeze is vicious. With average household incomes in Lakeland sitting at around $57,000 per year, families are being crushed under high interest rates. A $300,000 mortgage at today's 6.7% rate means monthly payments close to $2,000 before insurance and taxes. Add in insurance premiums that run $4,000 to $5,500 annually in this hurricane-prone zone, plus property taxes of about 1.1%, and the dream of affordable living collapses. What's worse, Lakeland's job base hasn't kept up with its explosive housing growth. Many residents commute to Tampa or Orlando, And with gas prices north of $3.60 a gallon, commuting has become a financial drain. Families who thought Lakeland was a safe middle ground are learning it's a trap. Falling values, stagnant wages, and soaring costs make this city one of Florida's ugliest housing busts. Number 8. Tampa. Tampa was once the poster child for Florida's pandemic housing boom, with investors pouring in and prices skyrocketing nearly 50% from 2020 to 2022. But by 2025, the shine is gone. The median home price in Tampa Bay has slipped to about $400,000, down from $445,000 a year ago, a loss of more than 10%. For many homeowners, that means tens of thousands in evaporated equity in less than 12 months. Inventory tells the story of a market in retreat. Listings have jumped nearly 35% year over year, and a staggering 43% of sellers are now resorting to price cuts. Homes that once sold in a weekend now sit on the market for an average of 85 days, often requiring reductions of $25,000 to $50,000 before attracting buyers. Investors who gobbled up short-term rentals are bailing, dumping properties that no longer cover their mortgages, declining Airbnb bookings. Affordability is at crisis levels. Tampa's average household income is about $67,000. Yet a $400,000 home with a 6.8% mortgage rate translates to payments of nearly $2,700 a month, with taxes and insurance included. Insurance premiums alone are brutal, averaging $5,500 to $7,200 annually in Hillsborough County, some even higher for coastal properties. Add HOA fees in master-planned communities, often $200 to $400 monthly, and families are cracking under the weight. The economy isn't bailing homeowners out either. Tampa's job market is cooling, with tech layoffs and a slowdown in financial services jobs that once made the city a relocation hotspot. Tourism is also softer, hit by inflation and the rising cost of flights. With demand slipping and costs surging, Tampa has turned from Florida's golden child to one of its most dangerous markets, where once booming neighborhoods are now bleeding value faster than anywhere else in the state. Number 7. Orlando. Orlando, the land of theme parks and fairy tales, is facing a housing nightmare in 2025. The median home price here has fallen to around $390,000, down nearly 11% from last year's $440,000 peak. That means families who bought at the top are staring at $45,000 to $60,000 in paper losses already. Investors who banked on endless Disney-driven demand are learning the magic doesn't apply to real estate corrections. Inventory has ballooned by nearly 33% year over year, creating a glut of listings. Over 42% of homes now undergo at least one price cut, with reductions averaging $25,000 to $40,000 just to get showings. Days on market have surged past 90 days, triple what they were during the 2021 frenzy. Builders are panicking, offering unheard-of perks like free appliance packages, mortgage rate buy-downs, and tens of thousands in incentives just to clear their unsold stock. The affordability crisis is severe. The average Orlando household earns about $64,000 annually, yet the cost of owning a modest $390,000 home with today's 6.9% mortgage rate comes in around $2,600 per month when you factor in taxes and insurance. Speaking of insurance, premiums in Central Florida are now averaging $4,200 to $6,000 annually, and HOA fees in suburban communities tack on another $150 to $350 monthly. For many, this means over 45% of income disappears into housing costs, well above safe affordability limits. Tourism, Orlando's economic backbone, is also faltering. Disney, Universal, and the broader travel industry are reporting softer attendance as families cut back on vacations. That decline ripples through hotels, restaurants, and jobs, leaving fewer locals able to afford the inflated housing market. Orlando's glittering skyline hides a brutal truth. This once-hot housing market is plunging into freefall, taking thousands of families' financial dreams with it. Number 6. Fort Myers. Fort Myers was once marketed as Florida's tropical bargain, a city where retirees, snowbirds, and investors all flocked for sunshine and steady appreciation. But in 2025, the numbers are downright brutal. The median home price has slipped to around $360,000, down nearly 12% from last year's $410,000 peak. Families who bought at the height of the frenzy have seen $40,000 to $60,000 in equity vanish almost overnight. In Lee County as a whole, the Cape Coral-Fort Myers metro has one of the highest rates of price cuts in the state, with more than 44% of listings reduced before closing. Inventory has exploded by almost 30% year over year, flooding the market with unsold homes. Properties that once sold in a week now sit on the market for 95-plus days, bleeding value as desperate sellers slash prices by $25,000 or more. New construction hasn't slowed either, leaving neighborhoods full of empty or partially sold houses. Builders are offering $15,000 to $20,000 in incentives, free upgrades, and even mortgage buydowns to move inventory. The affordability crisis is crushing. With the average household income in Fort Myers just $59,000, owning a $360,000 home at today's 6.8% mortgage rate means monthly payments near $2,400, not including extras. Insurance premiums are catastrophic, commonly $6,000 to $9,000 annually due to hurricane risk, and Citizens Insurance is becoming the only option for many homeowners. Add property taxes averaging 1.02%, about $3,600 a year, and the so-called Florida lifestyle feels like financial quicksand. The local economy is heavily reliant on tourism, construction, and service jobs, none of which provide the salaries needed to support these costs. With higher living expenses, many families are bailing, leaving Fort Myers to face one of the fastest housing corrections in the Sunshine State, a market that once sparkled but now resembles a trap. Number 5. Northport. Northport, once a quiet suburban retreat in Sarasota County, is now one of Florida's most alarming housing crash stories. The median home price sits at about $345,000, down nearly 10% from last year's $380,000 levels. For families who stretched their budgets in 2022 to 2023, that translates to $35,000 in equity wiped out. Price reductions dominate the market. Over 42% of homes listed have slashed prices, and sellers are desperate to attract attention. Inventory has surged more than 32% year over year, with unsold homes clogging the market. Builders are feeling the pain too. The Northport-Sarasota-Bradenton corridor saw a massive construction boom, and now those new subdivisions are overflowing with vacant or discounted properties. Incentives of $20,000 or more in upgrades and closing costs are standard, but buyers are hesitant, knowing values keep slipping. Days on market are now averaging 85-plus days, compared to under 30 just 2 years ago. Affordability is the breaking point. Northport's average household income is roughly $60,000, but the cost of financing a $345,000 home at 6.9% mortgage rates runs close to $2,300 monthly, excluding extras. Insurance premiums in Sarasota County run between $5,500 to $8,000 annually, with many companies pulling out entirely, forcing residents onto state-backed Citizens. Property taxes at around 1.04% add another $3,500 yearly to the burden. The city's job market is limited, heavily tied to construction, healthcare, and retail. With gas at $3.70 a gallon, commuting to Sarasota or Tampa only piles on more costs. Families who moved here for affordable suburban living now feel trapped in homes worth less than their mortgages, burdened with insurance bills larger than car payments. Northport's housing dream has curdled into one of Florida's most glaring cautionary tales. Number 4. Bradenton. Bradenton, perched along Florida's Gulf Coast, enjoyed a pandemic-era real estate boom that drew retirees, investors, and families from across the country. But by 2025, the city is unraveling into a housing nightmare. The median home price is now around $370,000, down nearly 11% from $415,000 a year ago. That means buyers who rushed in at peak prices have already lost $40,000 to $50,000 in equity. Inventory has ballooned 29% year over year, saturating the Manatee County market. More than 40% of homes listed have price cuts, with reductions averaging $20,000 to $35,000 just to get a nibble from hesitant buyers. Homes that once sold in days now linger on the market for 90 to 100 days, and bidding wars have been replaced by desperate seller concessions. Builders in the Bradenton area are slashing prices on new construction, throwing in free appliances, mortgage buy-downs, and $25,000 in incentives to unload empty houses. The affordability squeeze is suffocating. Average household income in Bradenton is just $62,000, far below what's needed to comfortably afford a $370,000 home with today's 6.7% mortgage rates. Monthly payments hover around $2,500 with taxes and insurance, consuming nearly half the take-home pay of many local families. Insurance premiums are another gut punch, averaging $6,000 to $8,500 annually in coastal Manatee County, with property taxes around 1.05% or roughly $3,800 yearly. Local jobs haven't kept pace. Bradenton's economy leans heavily on tourism, hospitality, and service industries that pay nowhere near enough to match housing costs. Retirees and remote workers are bailing on the city, leaving behind empty condos and declining demand. What was marketed as a coastal paradise is now bleeding value, transforming Bradenton into one of Florida's clearest examples of a housing bubble bursting in real time. Number 3. Punta Gorda. Punta Gorda, once the quiet gem of Charlotte County, is now one of the ugliest housing implosions in Florida. In 2025, the median home price has tumbled to about $330,000, representing a staggering 14 to 15% drop year over year. Families who bought in 2022 to 2023 are staring at $50,000 to $70,000 in evaporated equity, while investors who rushed into waterfront homes during the pandemic are bailing out with huge losses. Price cuts dominate the market. Over 45% of listings are slashed, sometimes by $40,000 to $60,000, just to find buyers. Inventory is overflowing. Compared to 2022's frenzy, listings are up nearly 35%, leaving neighborhoods spotted with for sale signs that refuse to come down. Days on market now hover above 95 days, 3 times higher than at the peak of demand. New construction worsens the glut, with developers dumping unsold homes and offering $25,000 in incentives, mortgage rate buydowns, and even covering HOA dues for a year. The affordability equation is brutal. Punta Gorda's average household income sits around $58,000 annually, yet financing a $330,000 home at today's 6.9% interest rate means payments near $2,300 per month before insurance and taxes. Insurance is catastrophic. Average premiums have climbed to $6,500 to $9,000 annually due to hurricane exposure, while property taxes chew up another $3,200 a year. For many households, over 45% of income vanishes into housing costs, far above sustainable levels. Local jobs don't save the picture. Punta Gorda relies heavily on tourism, retirees, and service sector employment, none of which offer the wages needed to shoulder these costs. With buyers fleeing and retirees opting for cheaper inland markets, Punta Gorda has shifted from a waterfront paradise to one of Florida's clearest examples of a housing crash in motion. A city where the dream home has become an anchor dragging families under. Number 2. Naples. Naples was once the crown jewel of Florida's Gulf Coast. Million-dollar estates, luxury condos, and endless demand from retirees and wealthy transplants. But in 2025, the Naples market is collapsing faster than any other in Florida. The median single-family home price has plummeted nearly 19% year over year, now resting around $600,000, down from $740,000 in 2024. That's a jaw-dropping $140,000 in equity gone in just 1 year, turning Naples into ground zero of Florida's housing correction. Inventory has soared by more than 37%, with sellers flooding the market to escape before values slide further. Roughly 48% of listings undergo price cuts, often by $50,000 to $100,000, as luxury homes that once sold overnight now linger for 120-plus days. Builders who targeted wealthy snowbirds are panicking, throwing in $50,000 incentive packages, free upgrades, and mortgage buydowns just to get contracts signed. Even the affluent are feeling the squeeze. With Collier County insurance premiums averaging $9,000 to $12,000 annually for coastal properties, and property taxes on a $600,000 home topping $6,600 a year, carrying costs are staggering. A standard mortgage at 6.8% interest pushes monthly payments well past $4,000, numbers even wealthy retirees are balking at. Rental demand has softened too, as seasonal visitors trim vacation budgets, leaving investors with empty luxury condos they can't offload. Naples' economy, reliant on tourism and high-end services, is faltering under inflation and shrinking travel. The once insatiable demand for luxury property is evaporating, exposing just how overbuilt and overpriced the market became. Naples has transformed from Florida's most glamorous housing hotspot into its most shocking implosion, where even millionaires are watching their properties hemorrhage value at historic speed. Number 1. Cape Coral. Cape Coral, famous for its canals and endless new subdivisions, is now the poster child for Florida's housing freefall. After years of double-digit growth, the market has slammed into reverse. The median home price in Cape Coral has crashed to about $350,000, down nearly 10% from last year's $390,000, and more than $70,000 off its pandemic-era peak. Families who bought in 2022 are underwater, and investors are flooding the market with distressed listings. Inventory is exploding, up more than 40% year over year, with entire neighborhoods filled with for sale signs. Over 46% of listings have price cuts, averaging $25,000 to $50,000, and days on market stretch past 100 days compared to less than 20 in the frenzy years. Builders overshot demand, leaving Cape Coral littered with unsold homes. Incentives of $20,000 to $30,000 are common, but buyers remain cautious, knowing prices keep falling. Affordability is dire. With Lee County's average household income sitting at just $60,000, financing a $350,000 home at 6.9% rates means $2,400 monthly payments before taxes and insurance. Insurance bills are catastrophic, averaging $7,000 to $10,000 annually due to hurricane risk and flood exposure. Add property taxes of about $3,700 a year, plus HOA fees in canal communities, and the affordable waterfront dream crumbles into financial ruin. Cape Coral's economy leans heavily on construction and service jobs, neither of which offer salaries to support today's costs. Tourism has softened, investor appetite has collapsed, and retirees are looking inland for cheaper, safer housing. Cape Coral is the epitome of Florida's 2025 housing crash. Overbuilt, overhyped, and now bleeding value so quickly it's turning one of the state's most ambitious boomtowns into a symbol of freefall.